Hey guys, welcome back to Detention to Details. Today, I wanted to show you how big Penny's gotten. Before we get started, she's up to about 18 pounds now. She's a moose. So today is episode 5, Client Turned Friend. We're going to talk to my best friend, Lee Seaver, and talk about how we became best friends from meeting each other as clients and go from there. So Lee, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Well, just introduce yourself quick to everyone.
Well, my name's Lee Seaver. I'm 31 years old. I've lived in Las Vegas nearly my entire life. I've known Justin for 10, 12 years, just about. I've known him closely since COVID. I'm a software developer. I like to be very hands-on with things, and I think that's one of the reasons ultimately why we're friends, and among many other reasons.
Agreed. So take us back to how we first met over 10 years ago when I was still mobile. What did you remember about our first interaction?
I was thinking back to this, and I vividly remember Googling mobile detailing or detailing, and keep in mind this was 10, 12 years ago, so the internet was very different. And I saw Two Boxers mobile detailing, and at the time I had just adopted my first dog, which was a Boxer Pit Bull mix, and immediately I was like, this is the guy. Called him up, very polite, very straightforward on the phone, and he came out, and I had just purchased a new Audi, and I was still living with my mom at the time, and he came over to our familial house and cleaned and polished all the cars, and I was really happy with the work he did. He was a very personable guy, and he just came out and did hard work, and it was kind of a set deal for me. I was like, this is my guy until something's wrong.
What was I driving then? Do you even remember?
I believe it was a Titan,
The red Nissan
Titan, yeah. And you had a trailer, if my memory serves.
Yeah, because it went back and forth between the trailer and the truck bed sometimes.
Yeah, and yeah, you showed up in that red truck, and you were at our house all day, and I would come out and periodically like talk to you and offer you some water, and would just chat a little bit, but you were working.
Yeah, I remember having pretty decent conversation with you, and you were young at the time. I mean, you were
21.
You were 21, and
Yeah.
I was, 32 or something like that. We were, very far apart. But you just seemed like a good kid, and the neighborhood you worked in was pretty nice. And that's I just try to think back to. Obviously I went from a 1983 Mazda B2000 to a 1989 Ford Ranger. And it's just like, I think about my progression and like the neighborhoods that I would even be remotely able to find clients within. So the Red Titan was really a step up for me at that point. It was an opportunity to kind of have a nicer vehicle.
I vividly remember the sticker of, the two dogs on the side of the water tank, and when I saw that, I was like, all right, he's not showing up in a beat up truck, and he came, and he like I said, and it was 10, 12 years ago, so the memory is a little foggy, but I remember he showed up and he did work.
Yeah,
and I had a lot of respect for that.
Well, I think you kind of touched into it about like what made you trust me back then, like even when I was mobile and didn't have like a crew in a shop. And I guess it was just the presentation and the original communication.
A lot of that, and growing up, my dad had a detailing guy that would come twice a month to the house and clean the cars, and he was very diligent, and like until my dad moved away, that was the guy that detailed our cars as long as I can remember. I believe his name was Tyler. And so in my head, with my dad not being around and it was just me and my mom in this big familial house, I was like, all right, cool. I got somebody to take care of the vehicles, and I called, and he would show up within a day or so and would get to work. It was that straightforward. And at the time I didn't know what was to come. I knew that I had a phone number, and if I needed my cars cleaned and I knew that they were going to be taken care of, this was the guy to go to. And at the time, if anybody asked, I would hand the number out, and I still have for the last 12 years.
For sure. Yeah, I was going to ask kind of what stood out about my hustle and mindset, but I mean, I guess you just kind of touched on it, that I was, there when I needed to be, and reliable and dependable.
Back then, it was like, did you pick up the phone?
Yeah.
And what it had turned into was, like, I'd moved out of my parents' house and I was living off on the strip at Sky Las Vegas, and I was having you clean my car like every 2 weeks, and sometimes you come and sometimes I meet you in places, and it really didn't matter. You were like, you need the car cleaned, when, where, and let's just get it done.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having you come to my house, and I had JD like in a car seat just chilling.
A lot of memories of that.
Yeah.
And that was the other part of the hustle that really stood out to me, and why I always called you back, because internally it felt good that I knew I was supporting somebody who was directly trying to take care of their young child, and B, seeing that hustle of like, no, I have my kid, but I have to make money, like, let's get this done. He's chilling in the car, I'll go give him a little bit of attention if he needs it. I'll go give him a little bit of attention if he needs it. And thankfully he was young enough that he didn't need an obscene amount of attention, and I had a lot of respect for that. And if the job took an extra 10-15 minutes, the job took an extra 10 or 15 minutes. Like, you're a single dad out here hustling. And
yeah.
I was 21, 22, 23 at the time, and I had a ton of respect for that because I was trying to figure out my own hustle at the time.
Right. That's pretty cool, man. So, I mean, let's talk about how our relationship evolved, right? From kind of that client relationship to friendship. I think it was like during COVID that I reached out to you. Hey, can you chill? Sit.
It was the start of COVID, and you texted me and you're like, hey, you want to grab a bite to eat? And we both had dogs, so we said, let's meet at Lazy Dogs with the dogs, Jane and Lily. And it was like, that's all she wrote. We met up and we had lunch, and one of the things that really I will remember to this day and forever was we're eating, and I had put every piece of food on my plate onto the fork and went to take a bite, and he looks at me and he goes, the perfect bite. And nobody had ever put a term to that action. And it was like a little thing like that, and we immediately hit it off. The dogs got along great, and we had a really wonderful conversation as these jets are just like roaring over our head. And because we had been talking in between the noise of the compressor and his water machine for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, as you were coming in and working, it just felt right. And like I said, that's all she wrote. We hung out that one time, and I was like, oh, cool. I found somebody who is very similar yet very different. And it was a really wonderful day.
We definitely have a lot of differences, right? I mean, we have a lot of similarities, but we're very different. I mean, I'm Christian, you're Jewish. Like, you grew up in a, higher income home. I grew up in a lower to medium income, probably lower income home when I think about it, in comparison. You grew up like going to California and on the boat and, things like that I never really got to experience. So, I mean, I think that we are very similar and we're very different, and our differences create conversation pieces, and our similarities create experiences for us to experience together, right?
One of the things that I've always found to be, how do I phrase this? One of the things that I really love about you is our ADHD is so similar. And this is where, for me, I think like we just really got each other. And a lot of things, like, yeah, we've argued and fought and we've had disagreements, but there's this really, like, there's this base fundamental layer of kind of how our brains work, where we understand each other. It's like we're in each other's heads, even down to some weird texture things with food, where I don't meet other people that have these same things. And for me, that's a really big component of our friendship, is the fact that our brains are weird in the same way.
Yeah.
But the differences are also why I really love you as a close friend, because there's a lot of things about you I really look up to, because we play our lives and operate our lives very differently in that aspect as well.
Totally.
Dog's going crazy today.
So, I mean, in watching the journey from two boxers mobile detailing to what Detailers of Las Vegas is today, what is the most like standout thing that you would put your hand on?
I've got 3 for you that immediately come to mind. I remember after I had gone to rehab and I came back to Las Vegas, this was in, I think, 2016, 2017, I'd started working for an e-commerce fulfillment company on Patrick and Eastern, right down the street from your original shop.
Yep.
And at the time I was driving, because I was gearing up to buy an M3. I want to learn how to drive stick. So I bought a beat up old 1994 Nissan hardbody with like 250,000 miles on it, just to learn how to drive stick. And no intention of ever getting it cleaned or anything like that. But I was driving home one day and I was like, you know what, I'll go pop into Justin's shop. I think he'd been there all of like 3 or 4 months, and I'll give you a reference point for you here in a moment. And I remember pulling up and walking in and seeing that like almost 90% of the walls on this massive warehouse building, the interior walls were painted black. And when I pulled in, because it was the end of the workday, you were painting the wall, like you were finishing painting the walls, if my memory serves. And you'd come down, we chatted, and you were like, yeah, I've been painting every moment I have. And I have a memory of painting a 20,000 square foot warehouse with my dad and a crew that my dad owned growing up. And that was a week-long project to paint the interior walls. And so I understood just how much of an undertaking painting this massive wall was. And just kind of the look in your face was like, I'm so ready for this to be done. And immediately, without skipping a beat, we walk outside and he sees the truck and his face lights up because it reminded him of his, Mazda
B2000.
Yeah, the B2000. And it was really a standout moment to me, seeing you go from this little Tundra and a trailer to having to paint the walls of the shop so that you could deliver a better output to your customers. And that was at the time I was running a 3,000 square foot office / warehouse. We were moving a lot of product through that e-commerce company, but seeing what you were doing alone, might I add, it really was like, wow. A, I didn't know detailers needed shops, and B, this is pretty wild. That's the first memory I have. The second one that really stands out to me is the first SEMA party with your mom and with you was like, you had always spoken so like, you'd always kind of talked a big game, and I never actually seen it with my own eyes. And to actually see 100, 150 people show up, and to see him be the host that he plays so well, put together this incredible party, and in less than a handful of years had created a name for himself in this detailing space, which I'd watched my parents do in the toner space, was incredible. Because I knew the work that came into doing that and getting to that point where you could invite people and actually have them show up, and much less show up and have a good time and shake your hand and say, I'm happy to be here, not obligated to be here. Third, your new shop. Walking in, after you had torn down some walls, rehung the lights, painted the place up, epoxied the front floor, that was like, I remember I got goosebumps walking in there. It was like the second or third time after you'd kind of finished all the work. I got goosebumps because I knew this was the next chapter in your life, and I was really excited to see that happen. And just the aspect of like doors closing and new ones opening, you being such a close friend at the time, that one really is really high up there for me, because I knew the depth of what it meant to move out of that old shop, and seeing how happy you were in that new shop, and seeing the weight lifted off your shoulder that you had halved your rent essentially, which, you know, in a grand number scheme, it's not a lot, but on a day-to-day and a month-to-month, it is, and every little bit matters. And seeing your brain start working on how you could reutilize this shop and just have a new area to start working, because you had gotten burnt out on just a square. It was hard to work with. We had built structures, but it was a little too big. The original shop was a little too big, and it was a challenge. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And seeing you in that new shop, you were like, this is my home, and you had embraced it, I think, far more immediately than you had embraced the old shop, and just like you were oozing positive vibes.
I think it was because there was a few reasons. One, I wasn't month to month anymore. I had air conditioning, right? And
The air conditioning.
And it was like a weight kind of lifted off my hands, because my shoulders, because I had brought in, you know, two guys that were going to help me, you know, third the rent, really, right? Until one of them went sideways, and then, you know, I two-thirded the rent. But yeah, that new shop, man, was something else. I mean, just working in that front room, looking out the glass windows, seeing the airplanes take off and land, I'm like,
all of that, like, and I have met many memories standing in that front shop, or standing in the front of that shop, watching those airplanes go by as we're just chatting. And you, like, I think not only you, but like we as humans, we need that. And like I said, just watching your mind work, and I remember you looking at me and you were like, I have a vision. I'm going to have the cars in the clean room up front. We got the big rotunda of glass. We're going to get detailers up on top in big letters. He's like, I have a vision. And this is what I love about you, is you are not one to say and not do. You look at something and you go, I'm going to do this. And then you do it. And like, I'll never forget working for you. It's like a Friday afternoon.
I love this fucking story.
It's like a Friday afternoon, and you're like, Lee, I think we're going to get a storage container. And this was in the old shop. Like, I think I'm going to get a storage container. We're going to put it over there. We're going to build a platform, and on the other side of it, we're going to build a storage room, and we're going to have this big deck on top. And we're going to build a stringer for stairs over here. And I was just like, sure, dude. And I come in on Monday, and he's like, the storage container will be here at like 2. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, no, I bought a 20-foot storage container. It'll be here at 2. I thought you were shitting. I thought you were fucking with me, bro. And sure enough, like, you were giddy all goddamn day. And sure enough, the storage container shows up. And you know, we moved it into place, and then we used the van to pull it into place.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
moving
dude.
it around with the Mercedes Metris,
with the little Sprinter, or not the Sprinter, with the Metris.
Yep, exactly.
And like, we got it in place, and I'm just like, all right, now what?
Now we start cutting holes.
Scott from
Fabrication Syndicate.
Thank you.
Yep.
Came and cut some holes in it, and we put a sliding door and we put a window, and Jay spray foamed the inside of it.
New
We
floors.
finished
It looks beautiful.
we outfitted the inside of it. We kind of finished it, and then I come into work like a week or two later, and there's all this wood, and I genuinely think it was on a paper towel that you and a Sharpie that you had drawn out the sketches. It might have been a piece of paper, but in my head it was a napkin. And you're like, this is the plan. And you kind of laid it out and showed me and like walked me through a handful of tools and just kind of handed me a saw and said, measure twice, cut once. And I looked at you and I was like, I've never really used a circular saw before. And you're like, great. It works like this. Don't get your hand in the way.
Your whole 20-second lesson.
Yeah,
crash
and I was
course.
just like, and you're like, here's a few other tricks to use with your chalk line and to get everything lined up and squared. And
You got this, buddy.
yeah, and like he just looked at me and was like, you got this. And I was like, all right. And after a little bit of complaining, I did indeed got it. And you know, we built a structure for storage and like a deck on top and a little tunnel.
A whole mezzanine.
And, yeah, a whole mezzanine and then a deck on top of the storage container. And I would be lying if I said I didn't take a lot of pride in the work that I got done with you there.
Lee, I don't know if I've ever voiced this to you, but I saw a lot of growth from you that couple weeks.
I had a lot of growth that couple weeks. That spurred me to have the confidence during COVID to turn around and look at a 30-year-old camper and go, I'm gonna live out of this. Like I built a structure with Jay. Like I can figure out how to wire solar panels and mount them to a roof. Like
And you did.
Can't be that hard.
And you did.
And it wasn't that hard. And
Yeah.
I did.
And you didn't even need me. You did it on your own. So it was
I
like,
needed you for a few things after the fact.
But again, you
Yeah.
know, I'd rather teach a man how to fish than feed him.
And this is why I love you. Is it's education. Like you're a provider of education, and there are certain times where your tone may be a little off, but there are other times where, you know, the best analogy I have is you got to push the bird out the nest and see if it'll fly.
Yeah.
And you've done a very good job of that with me, I think, when I was working with you and just kind of saying, figure it out, because if we don't get this figured out, then neither of us are going to get paid. Period. Let me know if you need help.
Yeah. So looking back on, you know, when you saw me move into the shop and saw like what I was developing, what made you want to get involved? Because, you know, you jumped in full steam.
So I had, so it was the start of COVID, like to set the scene a little bit, it was the start of COVID and I was working for an e-commerce company. Like it was really an advertising company that had a few subsidiaries that were e-commerce companies. And I was managing the warehouse customer service team. I was basically the OM and running everything. The owner of the company would spend 6 months out of the year in Aruba and like would hardly talk to me. So I was really like running that place on my own. He would just do the advertising, and it was great for 2 years. And then COVID happened, and we switched from selling what we were selling to masks. And he started like, and this was like the hot thing then. Everybody's trying to get masks, and I remember we ordered like 500,000 masks, and they showed up one day and they all were fucked up. They had holes, the straps weren't connected, and he just said, send them out. And I didn't really have any options there. And he did this repeatedly for like a month, and over in personal integrity, I ended up quitting because it was the COVID craze. Everybody was freaking out. We had messages from EMTs and hospital workers and all these first care responders that were like, thank you so much for providing affordable masks and not price gouging. And
they were faulty.
And or like they wouldn't get shipped for months. Like it turned into a whole thing. And I like I remember I was having anxiety attacks, and I went to my doctor. I remember I went to my doctor and said I need some anti-anxiety medication. He asked me why, and I told him why, and he said just need to quit. And it was like a moment of clarity when he said that to me, and I was like, all right. I quit the very next day, and I didn't have a job for like 2 or 3 months. And thankfully I'd saved up. I was planning on buying a house then, so I'd like saved up a bunch of money, and I was kind of floating myself through just fine. But I remember you had posted a thing on Instagram, like a little post on Instagram saying like, I'm looking for a secretary or like a front office worker or something like that. And I saw that and I thought about it for like a week or two. And you know, at the time it was COVID, people were getting laid off in droves. I saw this as an opportunity to come in and try to apply my area of expertise to a business that I thought could use it. And
What were some of those inefficiencies that you noticed that,
so
you came in and helped with?
initially, like pre getting into your office, I really wasn't aware of any. It was really, I wanted, like, my thought process was if you're growing by trying to get a front office worker, then I know that means that you need help in many other areas and you're trying to start small. And I remember I walked in, I didn't have a printer at the time, and you wanted a DMV printout. And I didn't have a printer at the time. And remember I walked in with my laptop, like I paid the 20 some odd dollars for that report. And I walked in with my laptop, because I didn't have a printer. And I looked at you and I said, I want to help you take your business to the next level. Like, you're looking for a secretary and that's not what you need. Like, we need to take this to the next level. And we kind of talked for a little bit, and you said, all right, let's talk about it a little bit more, and let's get into this. I'll answer your question in a moment. Okay. One of the things that, this is why we're still friends to this day, but before I came in, we sat down, we had a conversation about, like, whatever happens is not going to get in the way of us being friends. And, at the time I was like, yeah, of course, whatever.
But I also explained to you that I had lost almost a marriage and my best friend, and that business was business, and I had to maintain that boundary and separate that from our personal relationship, no matter what. And I think that's the reason why you and I were able to make it still friends even after you worked for me, because we made that promise and we both stuck by our word.
We did. And like I said, at the time, I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, of course, not really understanding how
the depth,
exactly the depth. And now to answer your question, I will never forget when I came in there and I said, how do you schedule people? And you walked me up to that front office and you showed me a giant calendar, and a pencil. And you were very clear that I was not to write on that with pen. You made a really big deal. And
oh my God, that's
this is like the first day. And I just remember sitting there thinking, this is so goddamn stupid. I know you were born in the 80s, but fuck,
caveman days.
I didn't know we're still in the 80s. Like, we have Google Calendar, right? And you were like, I have to see it, and like it has to be visual for me. And hearing that, I understood that, because I'm a visual person too, and like I got the calendar, like that's why it worked, is like that it works. But is it efficient nowadays? No. That was part one, and the other one that really stuck out to me was no inventory system. You just bought as you used. Something would get low and you knew you needed to buy more of it. You'd write it down and you'd buy it. You kind of wait for a few things to stack up. You place a wholesale order.
Yep.
And it was just like that. And that was, for the first few months, like that was a big part of my job, was just walking around and making sure the chemicals were stocked.
Yeah.
Because a handful of times, especially in that first month. I remember like we would run out of degreaser, or we ran out of wipeout or something like that, and we had to go and into the storeroom and
A retail or something.
or use something that you had been gifted that was like a close fit.
Yeah.
And we weren't happy with the solution, but we had made a mistake, and we need something to fill the gap. And that's what really, like, I remember after that happened the second or third time, I was like, I need to figure out an inventory system, and sat down with my little MacBook Air and made an Excel spreadsheet of everything that we used and what the current stock was, and like when do we need to, like, as I'm walking around with this Excel printout, like at what level do we need to trigger me adding it to a list to buy more of it, because we're not, like, this is dumb. We're not going to run out of equipment or chemicals when this is the only thing that is necessary to do this job. Or you'd come and you'd be like, oh, I need more pads. I'm on my last one. I'm like, well, we have cars in the light room all week, or in the light tunnel all week. What do you mean you're on your last pad? Like, and like, give me the keys. Like, I'll go run and get more pads. And it was a lot. There was a lot of that in the first 2 months, just trying to figure out how much are you consuming and what are you consuming? Because that was the other thing I had no idea about, was the depth of chemicals and tools used. Like, I had zero knowledge going into about detailing, going into working for you, like zilcho. I remember you would pitch me sales things and tell me this, that, and the other, and I was like, whatever you think is best.
Speaking Korean to me.
Yeah, I remember for like, I had this beautiful black little A4, and I remember I looked at you and I was like, I think it needs to be clay waxed. And you looked at it and you're like, no, I don't see any contaminants. And I'm just like, okay. What are contaminants? And he's like, oh, well, like bee poop and pollen. And I was like, bee poop? Like, yeah, bees poop. All right. And that sticks to the car. And he's like, yeah, and then pollen gets stuck to it, and like little road debris, and like that gets stuck to your paint.
Iron
like,
deposits.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I was like, okay. So what does a clay bar do again? Like, and like, you explain it to me, and I'm like, so do I need it? And he's like, not really. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
a lot of people mistake clay barring for a paint correction.
Yeah.
They think that if you rub this magical clay bar of diatomaceous earth over your paint, that it will automatically remove the scratches. But in reality, it actually creates more scratches, as we know, right? It called marring. It makes
the paint,
it makes the paint look dull, especially like dark colors like that. But I don't know, one day I walk in and I'm like, Lee, check out this app online. Tell me what you think. You're able.
Urable.
I think we called it Urable.
We called it Urable for a long time, and then
they came and they're like,
corrected
guys,
us.
it's You're Able. I'm like, oh my
Makes
goodness.
so much more
they're
sense.
Interviewing me, and I'm like, yeah, you got to use Urable. And they're
like, no.
Back up, pause, start again. Justin, take 10. You're able. How about we just film that little cut and you guys can throw that in?
I did the same thing in my interview with them too. And I remember that day, the whole day, I kept saying, you're able, not Urable. You're able, not Urable. You're able, not Urable. So Urable is just this great app.
I know. It's terrible because we had been saying it that way for so long.
2 years, I think, before they came and like actually corrected us.
Yeah. It's you are able.
Yep. So I remember you showed me You're Able, and she's so cute. I love her so much.
Snoring like a freaking
and
chainsaw.
That was the solution. It was cut and dry. They had everything we were looking for. As you've retold the story, I came running out of the office and I was like, we have to get this. And excuse me, surprise, it was only $100 a month. Immediately we paid for it, and
you went to work.
Yeah, I got really excited. We had a few onboarding calls with Chris, and that's that's when my expertise of like operations management really kicked in, because I knew that for this to work, we had to lay out a foundation of like, what are we doing as a business, so that we could just set the app up right. And, you know, just sitting down and getting all of the list of services with all the various variables and getting the pricing. And yeah, you had done some of this work already that was in QuickBooks, but actually going through and sorting it and making it make sense. And then everything else that we talked about upselling, actually adding it to be able to upsell it effectively, adding the details of just those sales. And then came the checklists, and then came the consumables, and it covered everything. And I remember it took me like a month to get it set up, but after that it was just
pretty
done.
streamlined.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that was 5 years ago, right? So
Wow.
I mean, do you imagine all of that app and the things that we had to unpack in setting that all up, right? There was products and services. There was our automated messages that you set up to go out prior to, as soon as they set up the appointment, as soon as they were requested the deposit, it did it all for us. So we didn't have to like type out a message. Hey, Paul, this is Justin, just trying to get your deposit for your appointment. It was automatically sent, and once it was paid, they were serious, and it was locked in, and we knew it, right?
Yep.
And it took
had
us...
the deposit option, everything.
So I know you haven't looked at it in a while, but your able has grown like crazy, right? I know you follow the family because we're all pretty tight friends, but it has grown like crazy. They have subscriptions now where you can set up subscription-based customers to do a reoccurring payment and all kinds of new and interesting stuff, right? And like, I think about how much we unpacked back then, and I think about versus like what it would take to get into that app and like really, like, if I can give anyone any suggestion, it is one, to use the app, and two, to have someone like Lee set it up for you. Because if you're not that type of computer person, and you're not the type of person to be able to list out all the details on a spreadsheet or on a description, find somebody who is, you know. And I have to tell you, you were instrumental in my business in integrating You're Able, you know. And that's why when they did the interview on me, even though you didn't work for me anymore, I still wanted you to be a part of it, because you were the initial part, you know. And it still is just such a huge tool in running my business, and I thank you for it.
I'm always happy to help. And I hate to say it like this, but it was such a no-brainer back then. Even now, like, I work, like, how do I phrase this? I went to software development school because of You're Able. I was so blown away that a family with one coder developed and sold this app that I turned around and said, A, I want to work for these people. B, the fact that they could build and sell this, I can do this. And I have, from the second the Abens family name has come into my life, I've always looked up to them because they are incredible, like in every aspect. And whether it's the actual software aspect of it,
Kyle,
but the marketing aspect of it, and actually creating a community around this app to the point that they were able to have a cruise.
Yep.
And more so than that, we now look at the family as a whole showing face at every convention and just being so unbelievably delightful about it. Like,
but they listen to their clients. And if you need something, if there's something that can benefit a detail shop and we're not doing it, we'll figure it out. We'll just give us a little bit of time, give us the idea, and we'll figure it out. That's what I love about them so much. It never stops.
It's incredible.
The vision never stops. It just continues to get better and better and better and better.
They like, as a developer and somebody that sells software, it is the pinnacle of, as like an individual person, what I would want to achieve and have tried to emulate. When I went to my boot camp, 6 months, it was grueling, 5 days a week. I ended up being behind that computer screen for almost 1,000 hours over the course of 6 months. And for our final project, it was a team of 4, and we could develop whatever we wanted. I made a copy or a version of Urable because I was so blown away by the app, like by what they did. I called it cruise control. I even used the same color scheme. Granted, we didn't like it wasn't anything we could have brought to market. There was no payment process or anything, but it was, it was like we had technicians, we had a timer, we had a calendar, and I remember thinking as I was developing that app, like, what did they do? Because they did it right. And if
this was when you were still in school for it?
Yeah. And if they did it, then I know that if I can do a light version of this, I will pass.
Right.
And I brought the idea to my teammates. They loved the idea. We went from there. But and it was really a awesome point in my life getting to see, like, after I graduated, getting to see that family, and getting to shake their hands and look Michael in the face and say, I copied your app for my school project, and I just gotta say, like, thank you. You guys are incredible. And his face lit up, and he grabbed my hand and shook it so freaking hard and pulled me in for a quick hug.
Such
and
a
I was
good
like,
guy.
the feels like yes, like will you mentor me, please? Like, because who wouldn't want that? It's just, yeah.
No, they're a great family. I mean, Chris is just so wonderful and personable, and just it's hard not to like any of them. And the crew just keeps growing, with Taylor and Mrs. Abens and all, I think they're up to like 8 or 9 now.
Yeah.
It's big, it's something big. So it's, congratulations to them, and thank you guys.
They're really killing it, and
for sure.
Like I said, they're definitely people to look up to, and I value that I've been able to have a relationship with them in my life.
Yeah, so I think that gets us through like what the most valuable additions we created on the day-to-day life was. We can kind of skip to the next ones. What have you learned about business or people from watching my whole process up close?
That's a loaded question.
Good. Unpack it.
I've learned a lot from you. It's a little difficult to give an outright answer, because there's so many lessons that have taken years to learn and understand the why of how you did things in your shop and why you chose to do them without really any explanation until I was a business owner myself. And there's been a lot of lessons that I've taken away just from you as a human in life in the last 5 years outside of your shop. To really put it in words, I think one of the longest lessons that only recently really dawned on me that I'm really trying to impact in my life is just the idea of, like, you need to kind of go on the offense. Like, you have to play attack a little bit. And I like it. The lesson came out in a game of chess between the two of us.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because it was a week ago.
But more so, I remember when I was in your shop, and two things real quick. I remember I was in your shop, and one day you looked at me and you went over the numbers with me. And I think I had worked for you for like 2 or 3 months. And the weight of expressing to me just how expensive it was to A, just get us paid, and B, to keep the lights on in the shop and just everything. And I remember you looked at me and you were like, we have to make this much money every month.
It's like $6,000.
It was like 6 or 8 grand. Yeah.
6 or 8 grand.
Yeah. And you were like, how are we going to do this? And I remember my heart going into my balls. straight past the stomach and bottom floor. Like
But as a business owner, you get that every day, don't
yeah,
you?
and I was like, I like, and I'm sure it was like a slow week, and like, fuck, I don't know. And I remember you came to me the next day with a stack of Post-it notes. You're like, this was everybody that I had an appointment with like 3 years ago. I want you to call every single person and try to book a mobile detailing. And I thought that was the dumbest fucking idea in the world. And we argued over it. And, I ended up doing it. I think we booked like 3 or 4 clients. I think I got a few people saying like, what the heck? I haven't used you in 3 years. And I was whatever. And I didn't really get that at the time. Like, I was like, no, we need to do this. We need to do this. Like, this is such like an old school method. And it wasn't until I think it was maybe Thanksgiving or Christmas with your mom and I didn't know this, that you had, before you moved into your first shop, like you had called hundreds of past customers and gotten like 10 grand in deposits or something like that. I didn't know that at the time, that you had just done that like 6 months before I showed up, maybe 8 months before I showed up.
It wasn't necessarily that. It was more so like at the time I had clients, good clients that I wanted to bring ceramic coatings and better detailing.
But still, just the idea that you got on the phone and you got 10 grand deposits prepaid was like I didn't know that at the time, and I was so taken back that you were like, let's just like, you have to call people and like get on the offense.
You have to find and use your resources,
Yeah,
whatever they look like,
and like.
And no, you don't have to be too proud.
Even if it is a stack of Post-its from 3 years ago. And guys, when I tell you the stack was like 3 inches tall, like there's probably 200 Post-its there. I was thrown off. Like I live in the digital world. I don't make phone calls. What are you talking about? And I remember calling every single one of those people. And then the next time around, I just did I found a service to do a voicemail drop. I paid for it myself, and I just did a voicemail drop. And that was, I think we got 2 customers from that, and life went on.
Somehow we figured it out.
Yeah, and that is like really the lesson that Jay has taught me so deeply, is like, you cannot sit. Like, you must always be pushing, and you must always be like if you see an opportunity, you must take it. Even in a game of chess, to snipe somebody with a fucking bishop from across the map and steal that rook and just get right back out of there. Like, it is all throughout his life, that is the mentality of like, I can snipe this deal real quick. Like, I can do this. I can do this. I see the pathway to becoming a pilot, even if it's a little expensive. I'm going to make it work because this is what I want, and that this is the pathway. Like,
Man, my mom has always said this life isn't a dress rehearsal. It's not like the big game is tomorrow. The big game's today, right now.
Every day.
Right now. And yes, tomorrow matters, but we don't even know if it's coming. We don't even know. So, when I make something up in my mind that I want to do something, I utilize every single last resource I can. And I think on it and I pray on it. And man, like, as you know, I'm very faithful. And I believe that my faith has brought you back to your faith a little more, right?
It has.
Because it's good to just believe in something bigger. And it's good to believe that there is a plan out there for you, right? And it's up to you to go take it.
And, this is something I struggle with in my own life a lot. I don't have a lot of faith in a lot of things. And as a result, like in my own life, I've found like I play a lot more defense than I do offense. And the idea of like, you just need to believe that things will go correctly. But more so, like, you need to punch, scream, bite, scratch your way to that. Like, nothing's handed to you. And like, this is like, if you want to ask what's the lesson to take away from you, it's like, I've watched you punch, fight, scream, slap, scratch your way to where you are now from driving around in a fucking Mazda or a Tundra with a Harbor Freight trailer. And look at where you're at now, you know? And in my life, there are not many people that have come around and have showed that format of not just consistency, but discipline. Like, there are not many people that I know in my life personally that have done the same thing for 15 plus years. And like, you've been detailing since you were 19, and like, this is something I've been thinking about a lot of, as you know, careers, like my career is changing a little bit, and my family, I'm working with my family again, and you know, things are just kind of moving about, and like, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, it's like every 2-3 years I end up changing what I'm doing, and yet here's somebody that I'm very close to, that I look up to, that has been doing the same thing for so long, and look at how far it has gotten him, because he is no longer, and like, we joke about this all the time, you're not doing $40 car washes anymore that you're driving to.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I brought my vehicle back to my Elantra, that after I had my beater truck, and like, yeah, how much is a car wash? And you were like, well, a detail inside's $150 and an exterior is $150, so $300. I was like, oh, how much is a regular
we gotta
car
make
wash?
$8,000 this
I was
month.
like,
No.
how much is a regular car wash? And I think you were like $85 or something like that. And you're like, but I'll do you $45. And you know, we joke about this, but you're a long way away from those $40 car washes, man. And it shows. Like, you've wrapped vehicles that have been showcased in SEMA. I'm in your shop all the time. Even now that I don't work there, I still show up and I see the work that you do, and you hear it out of my mouth all the time. You do incredible work, man. And it's not because you picked it up yesterday. It's because you've been bulk wrapping PPF for almost a decade now. Like, it doesn't come without practice. And that is the thing to me that I hold in such a high regard, is just the consistency. Like, what's the lesson in life is you must have discipline.
Yeah, you know, Lee,
And you show that so well.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I only learned that shortly before we became, you know, started hanging out as friends. Because when I drove that red truck, like, I just made enough money to go race motorcycles on the weekend, you know? Like, I didn't have any vision or any goal or any direction, you know? And it seems like, I think, you know, later on when I finally figured out, dude, if you don't figure it out, you're going to be doing this forever, right? So it's like the growth was so slow at first that when I finally got into that shop in 2018, I hit the ground running and wanted to learn about everything. And thankfully, with the background in the body shop, like, I understood paint and I understood panels and I understood taking things apart and putting them back together. But, you know, each step, I mean, man, you remember when that fucking plotter kept messing up. Like,
look, it has not come without its trials and tribulations.
No, dude, right. And I mean, so with that said, you know, and even after that plotter, I was like, you know what? We're done with PPF for a little bit. Because my blood pressure, I almost had a heart attack that day at like 30 some years, like 36 years old. It was
I remember
ugly.
I remember thankfully a brown truck came in to be wet sanded, and that lived in the light tunnel for like a month. And if my memory serves, that was right after the PPF incident.
Kind of
and
took my mind off of it.
You were so relieved, and then a month goes by and you're like, I'm ready to get this truck out of here and lay some PPF again.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't help yourself.
Yeah, and I remember like after that initial like hopelessness, I think I hired some guy to come in. And do you remember that guy that was like coming in super drunk and like would take him like fucking forever to do like a front end. I think his name was Travis or something. I don't remember his name, but I don't know.
I remember a guy drove in from California for a trial, and he like bombed the trial, and then we had a few employees when I was there that were pretty frustrating. Like I remember one of the kids ended up leaving degreaser on some powder coated rims and burned the rims, and another one left a rag with ceramic coating on.
I think
the
it was a rag. I
Mercedes
think it
of
was
the
a rag
windshield.
with water spot remover.
It was
And
it
it
was
Cooked,
burned.
it burned through
burned-
that top layer of the windshield.
Yep. Like there have been mistakes that have been made, or how many, like this was another one, and why I really loved You're Able, even still to this day.
It's just because we only were saying
I
the other
know.
word.
we screwed ourselves
We've
up
literally
on it.
gotten it down. So
we screwed
just don't
ourselves up
say
on
that
it.
other
I know,
word.
right?
It doesn't exist. It's not a word.
But I remember, and I had worked there for all of like 2 or 3 months, and one of the kids it was an express wash, and one of the kids was spraying the car down with a degreaser, and you come out and you're like, why are you using the degreaser? And you're just like, I don't know. And so like, you know, that went from a $40 car wash into now we have to like finish stripping the car and reseal it and like actually clean it and
But in reality,
do a halfway
that
detail.
was my fault.
Well, but that was everybody's fault. That because at a certain point, like I didn't have a checklist in place as the operations manager. B, he didn't double check that the chemical he was using was correct.
But
C,
I didn't train him properly, obviously. You know.
I think he'd been there all like 2 or 3 weeks, man. Like,
Oh,
and this
okay.
is the other thing in life that I think both you and I are, not to get off topic here, but it's been like a hard lesson for us to figure out as adults is just expectations of other people. And nobody is going to replicate us immediately. It takes years and years and years. And Jay, like, how many classes have you gone to learn how to do your craft better? Like you didn't just pick up a polisher and figure it out. You've like taken in umpteen amounts of hundreds of hours of content and endless amounts of weekends to perfect your craft.
Yeah, for sure.
And that doesn't come in a 2-year stint. That doesn't come in overnight. That comes in 10 plus, 15 plus years of being dedicated to one thing to the point that you're now at an area where you're like, I am going to build my business to sell it because I'm so good at my craft.
And the one thing is that I don't ever want to not be involved in it. You know, like I always want to be challenged, and I also want to be able to put my resources, you know, and talents to work, right? Just because I want to go fly airplanes just doesn't mean that I never want to lay another piece of PPF again. Do I ever want to polish a whole car ever again? Not really. But, you know, you do what you got to do, right?
Do what you gotta do.
If I end up buying like a $300,000 car, I probably will polish it myself, you know, and do all the work myself. But that's for a long way down the road, you know?
In due time.
Yeah.
In due time.
So let's talk about our chess match the other day. Because we hang out like 2 or 3 nights a week, right? And we have dinner together 2 or 3 nights a week. Like we live 2 miles from each other.
I
like
think it takes me 7 minutes, including warming my 6-liter up to get to you.
yeah, my kids call you Uncle Lee. Like it's, you know, you're my family,
Warms my heart.
right? So the other night, you know, we've been kind of playing chess together, right? And I've been playing chess longer than you've been alive, okay? And I used to get beat all the time by my dad. And I remember the first time I beat him, I'm like, ha, ha. And he just kind of was like, yeah, whatever, let's play again, you know? But I had a couple cocktails, and I had other outside things going on, and, you know, we're kind of playing, and I beat you the first time, and the second, I'm like, you started to set it up again, you want to play? Or maybe I asked if you wanted to play again. I won the second game, and then you started setting it up again. And I'm like, he wants to play again?
But mind you, midway through the second game, like he's talking shit the whole time. And midway through the second game, you like let me preface, like, I'm not a good chess player. But
getting better.
I'm learning. I learned when I was young. I played here and there in my life. Jay is a much better chess player than I am, chess player than I am. And we gotten about halfway through the second game, and I was sitting there for a minute thinking like, oh, I'm like he's got me basically in a few moves, like it's checkmate. And you were kind of talking shit, and you were like, you should just the game's over, you should just resign. And I was like, yeah, no.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. And so
man.
I knocked the king over, and you're like, put the king back up, play the game out. And I was like, all right, like, no, I'll play the game out. Like, it's not over yet. Like, we'll try. And of course he won the game, but he like,
that's when I started kind of laying into you a little
yeah,
bit.
and by the end of the second game, I was like a little defeated and was starting to get a little quiet, but just trying to not be, frankly, a little bitch. Like, I set the pieces up, I turned the chessboard around again, and I was like, let's play again. Just trying to remain, like, not butthurt about the situation.
And that third, let me just kind of
pick up
from my side on the third game. I really started laying into you. You started making the same moves, and I'm like, Lee, do you want me to keep winning? And I'm amped up. I'm like, I just won twice. Like, I want you to win, but I still want to win. I want to see you get better, but maybe not beat me this time. But so I get a little amped up, and I'm giving you a hard time.
The volume and tone were through the roof.
They were, and it was aggressive and not very kind. And I know I've apologized for it already, but I am sorry. And you turned to me and said,
something along the lines of, I think this is why your kid thinks you're an asshole.
You said, this is not helping me. You are not helping me be better by acting like this. And you are actually making me feel worse. And this is what your son feels when you do this to him.
Yeah. Didn't feel about it, but it came out. And like, I'm 31, and I felt like I was getting scolded by my dad, but not in a good way. Like, I was shut down, and like, I'm sure he could see my body language. I'm sure I had my arms over my chest, and I was sitting there pretty quiet. And I'm in the back of my head, I was thinking about walking out the door and just being like, fuck this, like, fuck off for a little bit. Like, you're being rude. But that's what came out of my mouth. And, I didn't, in retrospect, I didn't really feel great about it, but it's
in
what
retrospect,
came out.
I couldn't have been more thankful that you said that to me. Because there are times where I start to get overly excited and start to add an emotion, and not good emotion. And sometimes my son does shut down, and you've been watching me as a parent for the last 11 years. And in your heart that that's not the person I am, or the person that I want to be, or the parent that I want to be. And I don't think there was any other way you could have come to me and said, hey, Jay, your son thinks you're an asshole when you rag on him. They could have hit me the way that it did that night. Because we've had the discussion. You're like, you're a little hard on him. Am I abusive? No.
It's
am
the
I hard on
tone,
him?
man. It's
Right.
the tone.
Yeah.
And it's when the tone gets up here and you start, it's like.
And he shuts down.
Yeah, the best way is it's just like verbal abuse. It's verbal wailing. And like, I hate the word abuse, because like, you're not abusing your son, but as life has moved from the 50s to we're now in 2020s, how we communicate and how we get communicated with is very different.
Especially with our children, though, man. Like, I mean, and not all kids are like, if I yell at Enzo, like, Enzo, what are you doing? He'll be like, okay.
But he's 3, so he still is like,
yeah, no, I want to.
He yells back at you because you're yelling at him.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not a father, so I can't put myself in your shoes and say one way or the other, but I do have a dog, and I definitely yell at my dog sometimes. Like, I get it. I'm not like it's hard. Like the dog's almost 11, and every once in a while I'm just like, come the fuck on. Like, why are you, like she blue nose, she just pulls on me and I'm like, come on. Like I want to yell at her. I'm like, would I yell at my mom for walking slowly? No. The dog is theoretically older than my mother. She got a replaced knee. She got arthritis. Like, Lee, take a chill pill. Like,
And with me, I have to understand that my son goes back and forth between two totally different homes, has two totally
Both
different
homes.
sets of rules,
yeah.
has, you know, two totally different parents. And, you know, unfortunately, as men, our role has typically been the disciplinarian, you know, and I tell people a lot that I'm not raising two children, I'm raising two men. And I do my best to find a balance between caring and compassion and also discipline. You know, I've never hit my kids or anything like that, but it's a tough balance to find.
Something that I have observed from you as a father in this time versus, for instance, how my dad operated with me. And just so everybody knows, like my dad is, I'm 31, he's 78. He is the definition of a boomer. And he worked. He was removed. He was there, but you know, it was always like, if you get in trouble, your dad's gonna discipline you if mom's discipline doesn't stick. And dad, he never physically would hurt us, but boy, did he know how to give lectures and just wear you down. And as a kid, it was rough. And as an adult now, like I still don't like being lectured because I'm like, this is like reminds me of my
Cringe.
dad. But also as an adult, I've learned how to navigate a lecture a lot better. But you because you are a single father, it's a very different relationship than I think what both you and I had with our fathers. And we talked about this the other week. You know, you get to sit down with your son and like actually try to talk to him. And I got disciplined. My dad never came to me and actively tried to explain why he was choosing to be the way he is, why he's doing what he's doing, and what the goal is. Like we got it in bits and pieces, and I got a lot from my mom, but you know, we get it on lectures, on like when we go to family events, you know, you're representing the whole Seaver name and you have to have upstanding behavior and manners and you know, things like that. And we got a lot of like lectures like that, but I've never I don't have many memories of my dad sitting me down and trying to have like a heart to heart conversation with me, trying to understand like, why am I upset? And you like, this is why I love watching you as a father, and I love your boys, and I love getting to grow with your boys because I'm getting to watch you grow as a father. And you are an incredible father, and not saying my dad wasn't incredible, but the depth of I won't say paternal instinct, but just the depth of familial instinct that you have is very deep, man. Because you could very easily replicate what you grew up with. You could very easily come home, knock back a 6-pack, say, get the fuck in your room and do not talk to me. And sadly, that is the life for a lot of children. And, you know, that doesn't compute with you. Like that doesn't work for you. Yeah, you need some alone time. We're not going to argue that, but your son has something on his mind. You are going to sit down and try to work through and talk through that with him. And I just, how can you not look up to that? Because it's more than just providing. You are trying to be the totem pole of reason and logic and understanding in your son's life, because ultimately it's you or the internet. And I think it's a lot better coming from you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. I love my boys very much. They're
I do too. They're great kids.
they're very
It's
good boys.
been a lot of fun to watch them grow up.
Yeah.
Warms my heart when I hear him scream Uncle Lee when I knock on the door.
I know. And Enzo, like when he couldn't pronounce Uncle Lee, ugly, ugly.
Cute. Yeah.
So now I
Very
just call you
cute.
ugly.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
It warms
But
my heart, man.
yeah, it's cool, man. We're so glad you're a part of our family, and I mean, even just the support as like a brother and a friend, like knowing that I have you. I mean, I call him bitch. We talk pretty much every day.
Every day.
Yeah. And if there's a problem, like you've never been one to rush me off the phone if you don't, if you have something to do, you straight up, hey, like I'm in the middle of something, I'll call you back later. But never have you ever been like, all right, Jay, like I'm kind of tired of hearing about this. Like you just give me my space to.
We need we're human. Like I hate saying it like that, but like we're human. We need we're not designed to live in isolation, and like they say it takes a village to raise a kid, and
It damn sure does.
But it takes a village to do everything, even when the kids are grown. Like the parents still need somebody to talk to and vent to. Like not everybody has the luxury of or the desire to go to therapy or go to family therapy, or has maybe the need, but like I know that if I have something on my mind that I need to get off, I know who I'm going to call. I have my brothers, but everybody, all of my family lives in a different state, and like the relationship is what you make of it, and I think we both put 100% in, and it means a lot to me. I said this the other night, and I'll say it again, man. Like I just treat you how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
And you meet that very effectively.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, but that's the other side of this is you listen, you take things to heart, and I do the same to you, and I think this is where a lot of relationships and friendships break down nowadays is one little pebble in the roadway that catches the wheel up, and all of a sudden like the relationship's exploded, and this is one of the reasons why I still speak so highly of working with you. Is like, yeah, do we have a little falling out when I quit? Yeah. Did we not talk for a month? Yeah. Were you being a little aggressive in your business and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit? Yeah. Did we pout for about a month and a half, and then I forgot who called who, but you're like, somebody was like, you done pouting? And you're like, yeah. Cool, let's hang out.
I think I called you and say that. That doesn't sound like something you'd say.
Yeah.
Sounds like something I would say.
Yeah, it's like, you done pouting? I'm like, yeah. And like we started hanging out again, and it like full transparency on that. And like, I don't know if you're really aware of this, but it wasn't until we did that interview with You're Able that we had never really talked about me leaving. Like we just kind of brushed it aside and said it like it happened, and we never really got into it, and on like I know we were both hurt, but it wasn't until that interview with You're Able where you talked about it for a little bit, and like you teared up and cried a little bit, and I was like, oh. Like I started crying because I was like, fuck man, like I didn't know it had impacted you like that, and that was really a moment for me on like these things have to get communicated if you want to remain friends, and yeah. I'm thankful like I'm not thankful, but I'm thankful we were able to like kind of sweep it aside and remain friends, but I'm also not thankful for the fact that like we didn't talk about it for almost 2 years, and we've spoken about it a lot since then, and I feel a lot more closure surrounding it, and I think you do too. But like it shouldn't be like events like this in a relationship, whether it's platonic or not. They're not things that can just get swept under the rug. Like you have to communicate. You have to work through these things, and this is one of the things that I love about you and why I love being an uncle to your sons is we have our spats and we pout a little bit and we won't talk for a little bit, but we eventually come back and say what's up because like we understand that we may need a little bit of time to process because not everything happens overnight. We definitely don't see eye to eye on everything, and but that's all right. And I'm not friends with you because you're a yes man. I'm friends with you because you're a no fuck that man. Like seriously, fuck that. Why aren't you doing this instead? And
I'm not always right.
No, but you're always challenging, and not in like you as a human are challenging, but you're always pressing for the ideation of like, if you're not doing something that actively challenges you, like what are you doing? And watching that for a while now, it has pushed me to do that in my own life because you lead by example.
Yeah, I want you to feel challenged in something you feel led to do, right? Like going to work every day and feeling challenged in something you fucking hate, that's a terrible life, right? And I think in our whole falling out, you know, there may have been days that you came into the old detailers of Las Vegas hating working there, right? And my thing was, I mean, I think that we got to a point with each other where, one, the work wasn't coming in and we weren't really making what we should be. And there wasn't really anything for you to continue doing with the business. Like there was nothing challenging you to do more, be more. You had built out your able completely, and you know, we had streamlined everything. You almost streamlined yourself out of a job almost.
I basically did, because I remember towards the end, came in one morning and like inventory was good, everything was great. Like we had a few I think we had 2 details and like a few express washes and like a detail. So like the quota was met for the day in that sense.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck?
And I'm just like, and you walk in and you're all in a huff, and which like now I get why, because then in your eyes the quota wasn't met. Like what about tomorrow? What about the day after? What about next week? Like, and I'm just thinking like we've made our money for the day. Like, you know, what else needs to get done? Like you know, and
we need to push.
I remember you looked at me and you were like, if you have nothing to do, get the fucking broom and sweep the shop. Oh, God. And I was just like,
and that's that tone that I get.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay. And I went and I got the broom and I was like passive aggressively, slowly sweeping the shop. Yeah. And after like 3 minutes, you come up to me and you're like, if I had to do this, this would have been done already. Hurry up. And I was like, Jay, there's nothing for me to do. What do you want me to do? He was like, figure out how to push the business further. And I just sat there and I was like, the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, it's not very fair.
And like, I think I ended up quitting like 60 days later. And that was where, and we've talked about this component a lot of just like, how do you talk to people? Yeah. And at the time, it became very clear to me that, you know, when somebody is coming at me pretty aggressively, like you were, like I get defensive, I get passive aggressive, my ADHD kicks in, I don't want to do work.
Anxiety.
My anxiety starts rolling, and all of a sudden it went, and this is what sucked is, you know, the first 4 or 5 months I was like, we are pushing, building, we got Urable, and like we got that all figured out, and all of a sudden like we like kind of both, everything just kind of hit a wall because we were sitting here like, well, now what?
And I had wasted so much money in filming that fucking plotter. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
like it was like an $8,500 plotter.
There's and like
that was
not
just
everything
one
was black and white. There was so many layers,
right.
and it was, and like also guys, keep in mind this was peak shutdown. Like there were no cars on the road.
Ugly.
We were both freaking out about the fact that like there's no cars on the road. On the flip side, we had a great time driving home from work every day on our own little racetrack.
Oh, yeah. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah,
I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
That was super fun.
You were at Cactus and I was over at Revolution, so
Yep.
we would both take the same way down.
Yep,
Like,
and
all the
I'd
way
get
to-
off at Cactus
Yeah.
and you'd keep going.
That-
Oh my
yeah,
God, I
that
do
was so
remember
much
that.
fun.
That was so much fun.
Keeping the launcher whaled all like spun all the way up to just barely keep up with your Mustang.
Great.
Yeah, it's all about the driver, man.
Yeah, dude, it was so fun. Oh my goodness, I forgot all about that.
And that's where I really loved working for you because, you know, definitively, like, there's far more good memories than there are bad. And that, like, that's the thing that I always try to think about is, you know, we had a lot of great memories in that shop. Like, we did a lot of really cool things that I hold very high in my mind and very high in my life. And I'll say it again, the whole storage container and building that, like just doing that really gave me the confidence in myself to turn around and, like, genuinely, like, you guys don't know me, this is my first time on the podcast. During COVID, I spent almost a full year in a 30-year-old camper on top of a 20-year-old F350 that only had a 12-volt system in it. I put a 110, I put a kilowatt of solar on the roof, I put a sit-stand desk, I had 2 monitors, I had 3 hotspots, and I worked remotely off-grid for 10 months, I think it was.
Yeah. And anything that would happen, you could fix it.
I could and I did.
I mean, that camper was like sitting like this,
Yeah.
and you somehow
just
on the
leveled
side
it
of the
out.
road.
Yeah, just leveled it out a little bit. I remember like my first real trip in it. I came from Camarillo out here, and I was up at Lee Canyon, and I remember I stopped by your shop. We hung out for a little bit. I filled up the water tanks, or the water tank, and I drove up to the foot of Lee Canyon, and I get into the camper after the drive, and the carpet that I had installed on the floor is completely soaked, and my water tank was empty. And I remember I was like, I don't know what to do, and I immediately called you, and I was like, the water tank split, the carpet soaked, and you're like, well, come drive back down here, we'll put a fan in it and dry it out. And I'm like, and like came and drove back down, and we got it taken care of. And you know, it's like, that's the other part is, like, you call or I call, you answer, dude. Like, that's like
I pride myself on trying to be a problem solver, you know, for people,
and
for
that you
myself.
are. Yeah.
I want to make sure that if people have problems, that if I can help, I do, you know, especially people that I feel not indebted to, but that have deserved and earned that mutual give and take, respect and attention.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I try.
And
you know?
it's very interesting that out of 50 some employees I've probably had over the years, like, we've managed to keep it together, you know, and even after that chess match, when I wanted to punch you in the face, I realized, like, wait a minute, Justin, like, your way's, I mean, it's not the first time I've realized that my way is not always the right way. I definitely was 100% wrong in my tone and what I was saying, but, you know, it wasn't until then that I was like, oh, well, you do this sometimes subconsciously without even realizing.
We all do.
You know, but the fact that you can pull back on the reins and be like, whoa, horsey, whoa, Justin, relax, you know, and I've actually adopted that kind of technique in my life because I don't like to be screamed at or lectured either. So when that starts and when the tension and aggression starts to rise, I'm able to notice that my heart's starting to beat faster. I'm starting my tunnel vision. I kind of get a little bit of tunnel vision. Yeah. And if someone, like, the more it goes, it's like a cup, like, just filling it with water and water and water and water. And when I'm like, and as I'm going up, I'm trying to remove some of that water by saying, hey, let's calm, let's bring the tone back down, you know, and if it continues, then it spills over, it's not pretty, you know. And so I've adopted that principle of trying to remove some of that water as it's being dumped in my cup.
It's hard, man. It's hard. It's, you know.
But it takes self-control, and that's what it really is. It's self-control.
Self-control and mindfulness. A lot of mindfulness. Like, this is one of the things I've learned after being in therapy for a decade plus with the same guy is are you being mindful of what is coming out of your mouth? And I applaud you for this all the time, but like, are you really reflecting upon how it came out of your mouth? Because, and like, this is one of the things my dad used to yell at me about all the time growing up is like, it's your tone, it's your tone. I never understood what he meant by it's your tone until I was an adult. And I really processed through when somebody's tone is through the roof and my anxiety starts flaring. In my 20s, I would have argued and fought. And in my 30s, I'm like, nah, take a breath, please. We need to calm down. Or I'm not going to continue to engage in this because I'm not going to give you this kind of power over me.
Right. Yeah. You've definitely taught me that.
And it's just about boundaries. Like, I won't let people talk to me like that as an adult. I used to, and I used to talk to people like that as well. But one of my core traits or tenets in my life is talk to others how you want to be talked to. And if I don't want to be talked to like that, I'm not going to talk to them like that. Yeah. It's that simple.
And you know the fucked up part about me talking in that tone to you or talking to my son in that tone is I would fuck somebody up for talking to you or him like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I would fuck somebody up.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that and then look in the mirror at myself and say, do you feel good about that? Like, so actively, somehow, some way, I need to remember that tone is almost as important as the words that are coming out of your mouth, if not more.
I think more, frankly. And I've come to learn that I could say, not something rude, but like in a business setting, you can be a lot more blunt and direct as long as you check your tone. Mm-hmm. And it gets received so much better as long as your tone is in check. I've had plenty of instances with clients where we're both getting on each other and it doesn't end well. And I've had plenty of instances with clients where they've gotten on me for nothing that's really my fault. And as long as I remain cool and level-headed, and this is something my business partner Chris taught me, is like, just really bite your tongue, man, because people will work themselves out of that tone, and it will prevent you from matching that tone. And that's like, it takes two to tango.
Yeah,
it takes two to tango.
If you're not yelling back, there is no argument.
Exactly. And even if you're not yelling back, but if you're not returning that energy. And like, we've learned this in plenty of relationships in our own lives where
you run out of gas.
Not only you run out of gas, but you know, if you match somebody's energy, it just bingo. It just gets, and you keep upping and you keep upping until.
But if the person runs themselves out bingo. Of gas because you're not responding, bingo. Then you ultimately have the upper hand in the conversation.
It's not even an upper hand.
Well, it is just, really, because they'll start to almost back talk themselves. Like I do it sometimes. Like, wait a minute, you probably should have checked that, and then they're almost willing to give rather than
because they're embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't like to view it as an upper hand, because in my head I try to not run it as a manipulative power play, because I don't like to frame it like that. It's more so
letting someone get out what they need to get out.
Exactly, and it's the idea that, like, if I were in their shoes and upset about something, would I feel like, do I want to get this off my chest? And for some people, yeah, does it benefit them that they got it off their chest? Yeah, but does it, like, as a human, I've learned, like, people just want to be heard. I want to be heard too, but if I want to be heard, I need to listen.
Yeah.
And if you, a client, anybody's going to get on the phone and their voice and tone be up here, it's like, I'm going to give you your space and your time. And after a little while, it's like, take a breath for me. Just take a breath for me. I say it to you all the time. Just take a breath for me. And let's continue the conversation, because, you know, like, we don't need to be
sometimes as my friend, when I start to tell you things, I unload on you. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to either unload on that person, or, you know, I feel safe in that, you know,
well, I'm happy to
most of
that.
the time you feel like I'm not directing it at you, but every now and then you're like, Jay, calm down. Like, you're starting to give me anxiety. I want to be here to listen to you, and I know it's not directed at me, but it's starting to affect me. And at that point, I'm like, okay, man. I mean, most of the time, I'm like, you're right. Sorry. Like,
and I've come to learn in my life, it's usually just a volume thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to hear it. The tone is usually okay, but it's when that volume starts creeping up, then I'm like, dude, I'm like 3 feet away from you. Just take it down a notch. And you know, that's just what comes with being me, and that's what I impart on my friends and those that I care about, because I want to listen, but I also want to be able to actively listen and not hear you, but am thinking about the anxiety that you're making me feel, and not be able to actually give you like a good input, non-biased input that is relevant, or even be able to say, like, you know, are you looking for advice, or are you just looking to vent?
I think we kind of taught each other that, huh?
Yeah, and so sometimes it's like I just need to get this off my chest. And like the other night he came to me, I was like, I need some input, because like I don't know what to do, and I'm not going to sit down and get glazed by ChatGPT.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that like this is a big part of our friendship, is this distinction of being able to look at each other and say like, take it down a notch, but also B, like, I'm giving you your space because I know you're calling me because you need to get something off your chest. Get it. I'm here because I know every once in a while I call and I do the same shit to you, or my voice is through the roof, and you even tell me like, take a breath, like stop yelling. I let's talk about it. But
we've been mentors in each other's lives, I think, you know, and that's what it ultimately comes down to is it's our business client relationship is turned not only into like a friendship, but a mentorship, an equal mentorship, right? Because I learned just as much from you.
Appreciate that.
I mean, I don't know many people that have friends that they can call on a whim in an hour and say, hey, I'm going to miss my international flight from Vietnam to LAX back home to Vegas. Like, I don't really know what to do. I tried to book a car in mid-flight, but it was already 1 p.m. where I was, and it wouldn't allow me.
Yeah.
You know, it was only 10 p.m. in Las Vegas, but it was 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. where I was over the ocean. So they're like, you got to book a car for tomorrow. This dude jumps in it. You know, he's like, no worries. I'm going to go rent a car and I'll meet you at LAX. And, you know, it was almost like, dude, like, we almost like met right there. I mean, I got off the plane. I think I took like the shuttle to a Hilton hotel, walked next door to a Subway, ordered Subway, and you pulled up.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, man.
Had
like,
both the dogs in the car.
I know. Yeah. And, you know, for anybody who's watching this, get you a friend like that. Get you a friend that, you know, is there when you need them most. And, you know, I told you, I'm like, it's okay. I can just stay in LA for the night and come home tomorrow. You're like, Jay, I know you've been traveling international for 10 days. I know you want to see Jane. I know you want to come home. Dude. I'll come pick you up.
Like, fuck that. What else am I going to do? I think it was like a Friday or Saturday night. And I was like,
I don't remember what, dude. It was all a blur for me. I was awake for like 30 some hours.
Like, ultimately, the other big component of this, I remember I went on to, like, you're texting me from your international flight into LAX, and I looked at budget, and it was $34 to rent an Elantra for 1 day. And I was just like, well, that's a no-brainer. I've spent more. And
I think I told you to like grab my car and head down.
You had
there
your keys.
First. Oh.
Because I had asked you, I was like, let me take the van. You're like, I have the keys. And I was like, oh well. And so I went right up the street to the rent-a-car at Harry Reid, and grabbed an Elantra, went back, grabbed dogs, and just parked it at like 85-90 and just scooted over to LA in the middle of the night. Well, you guys know my mom lives like 5 miles away from LAX, so I have done that drive just about twice a month, if not monthly, since I was 18.
You can do it with your eyes
closed. So I
closed.
could do it with my eyes closed. And like, the The alarm was great. Basically drove itself.
The timing was just, you couldn't have gotten better timing, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was great.
it was great.
Showed up. You're like, the sandwiches are freshly made. Here's one.
You're like, do you mind if we eat them here? I'm like,
I was so hungry.
But you.
Yeah, it's like,
no, I know. I'm like, do you want me to drive? You're like, no.
No.
Like,
You better
come
wait.
on, I can drive.
You better wait for 30 hours. No.
Yeah.
I will drive us home.
I know.
And that was great. And, you know, it's times like that where, like, it's just great bonding. Like, and I wouldn't trade things like that for the world, because what else would I have been doing? Like sitting on my couch watching a movie. Like,
I remember that one time in Mexico, we were out in that Challenger and we're like fooling around the freeway, and you're like, all right, bro, just don't go above 150, okay?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, bro, here, film this. And you start filming.
Blasts to 175. It's like, all right, I guess we're doing it.
Crossing lanes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we've had some great experiences together, man.
Dad lore, man. It's dad lore.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to tell all of our stories.
We've had some good ones. We've had some good ones.
For sure. And we made it through it. Well, if people want to follow and connect with you, how can they do that?
I'm gonna have to double check what my Instagram handle is. Let's see here real quick. It's Lee _Aaron _ LEEAARON. So.
All right, so that's where you can contact Lee if you have any questions about marketing or coding, or you want to build a website or build an app or something like that. That's where you can get in touch. I'll throw a link in the bio as well.
Hit me up.
Thank you guys so much for joining in for episode 5, Detention to Details, Client to Friendship. We'll see you on the next one. Like and subscribe for more.